I can have your attention. If I don't have your attention, let me get your attention. Ladies and gentlemen.
The FirstDownline.com podcast.
The FirstDownline.com podcast.
Looks like they're going to measure here. Do you think they got the first down?
Now remember that the first down line is not official.
Your official enough download for the latest in sports and technology.
Download it.
Welcome in, First Down Line podcast. This is episode 8 on a beautiful final day of the PGA Tour Championship, or I guess you would call it the PGA Championship, and a little bit of a weird situation. I am broadcasting from outside, and that's okay because I'm excited to kind of be out in nature, but it's kind of weird because I'm usually inside my nice little setup that I have for this particular podcast. That said, I'm here, Sean is there, and every time I do this, I remember telling you right before we went on the air, Sean, I was like, don't worry, I'm going to go ahead and mute your microphone, and I'm going to, you shouldn't have to do a thing, but every time we try that, for some reason, it gets rid of my unmute option. So I guess I'll have to ask you to do it if that's possible, and we'll welcome you into the podcast. From there, we got a bunch of fun stuff coming up. So there you are. Sean, welcome aboard. How you doing, my man?
Thank you. And, I'm a little bit jealous because it looks really nice out there, but I just came in from outside and it's way too hot, so I think I'm good here on the couch.
Yeah, I just browsed or glanced over my shoulder here. It's 92 on this thermometer that we have outside. So where I live in Eastern Washington, it is always particularly hot. And the other weird thing, too, is this is the first time I'm using my tablet for my webcam, and I can already tell that there's a little bit of an issue with the sequence of or the synchronization of my mouth in the video. But that said, I also have to be like really far away from the camera in order for this whole thing to work, which is kind of bizarre. But nonetheless, we're podcasting, and that's what we're going to do. And someday we'll have a really cool studio from which to do this podcast. Until then, we'll continue to piece it together. You can get into the conversation with us if you're so inclined. All you have to do is go to Twitter. You can go to twitter.com/FirstDownLine, and we can hear from you. Also, you have the ability to email us, fdl@firstdownline.com. You're going to have an article up probably later today, Sean. Do you want to give us a little preview of what you're writing for firstdownline.com?
Yeah, taking a look at some of, there's been announcements over the last few weeks of some alternate jerseys for college football, specifically Adidas jerseys. So we're going to look at Michigan's Game Under the Lights alternate jerseys this year.
Yeah, I saw a tweet about those a little bit earlier, so those are pretty cool, and we'll look forward to seeing that, firstdownline.com. You can go there. I actually have on my phone over here, just using the same Wi-Fi connection, which might be an issue for me. But I'm still watching the PGA Championship, and the thing that I thought that was interesting about what they're doing today is earlier in the tournament, and also specifically today, they had a lot of rain in Kentucky at Valhalla. And this golf course is equipped with something called, basically it's a sub-air system that is able to take out some of the moisture from the greens, kind of using these vacuum-style plugins that they have. Plus, if you watch some of the shots from overhead, it's pretty cool that they have these drains in the middle of the fairways. So this whole course is designed to be able to get dry as quickly as possible should it be hung up on with moisture from a rainstorm or something like that. So the thing I'm pretty excited about is writing more about that on Tuesday, and maybe I can get some of the sub-air people on the show.
Yeah, that'd be great. It's an interesting world, the golf world, because you got this sort of technology, but it's all so far behind the scenes because they want to keep everything nice and traditional looking. So that'll be great to read later this week.
So you can, again, contact us, firstdownline.com. You can do so on Twitter, twitter.com/firstdownline, or also FDL@firstdownline.com. Let's get into some of the things that we do have on the site already, and that includes our Hall of Fame game post. This was a big Microsoft commercial on NBC the other day where they were taking these Microsoft Surface tablets, and they're putting them in these bright blue cases on the sidelines of the Hall of Fame game between the Giants and the Bills. This is actually just 1 week ago. And I say it's a commercial because they had to show these off in a very specific manner, saying, hey, this is going to be a brand new deal that the NFL is trying this year, but with these bright blue cases and the Windows logo so prominent. It's definitely a Microsoft commercial, especially considering they had to find a way to market these machines because they're losing so much money. If you read our article, it's somewhere around $600 million that Microsoft lost in fiscal year 2014 because of the Surface. And I'm pretty happy with my Windows tablet. It's not a Surface, it's a Samsung one. But that said, they need some help. And so you get the marketing power of the NFL behind it, and that's probably going to help them. But from the sports technology perspective, I do think it's nice that in 2014, the NFL is finally giving teams the option to go beyond just the binders of flipping through black and white photos to look at formations. So that is a pretty big advancement when it comes to the actual sports technology side.
Yeah, that's huge, and it's surprising, seeing as how the iPad came out, over 4 years ago now, that it's taken this long to get there. But I think it's going to be amazing. Getting the photos a few seconds after the play rather than getting them in batches throughout the game, and then the quality and being able to draw on the picture itself and have discussions about it. I think it's going to be a big game changer.
Yeah, the telestration was pretty cool, and that's something that fans can actually do through the iPad app, certainly for NFL Rewind, which is this a la carte add-on thing that you buy from the NFL. And you can watch all the games from prior weeks, but you have telestration, which is kind of fun, even though not terribly practical for fans of the NFL. But it works when you can give it to the teams.
Yeah, and that could even play into discussions we've had previously about fan experience in the stadiums, and put that in the hands of someone who's in the stands watching the game, and they could be reviewing the same plays that the players and coaches are down on the field.
Yeah, it's interesting because I do play-by-play, and a lot of people in my field talk about how they were in front of their TVs as a kid, and they would just mute the television and start doing play-by-play as a means to get into the field. We're going to have some coaches be developed in the stands being like, I got into this because I started circling the plays on the sideline.
That's right. And another thing that was at that game, they're micing up the refs now. We're not going to see any big conference huddles from all the officials anymore. What do you think of that?
I think it's, again, that's kind of a what took them so long kind of deal, like you talked about with the iPad coming out so long ago. But I was watching this week's preseason games, and I actually saw it be more of a noticeable use, because all the time the referee's behind the offense, right? And then there's a false start, and he has to run up and try to figure out who it's on. Instead, he just sat there, and it kind of looked like a reporter via satellite from another country being like, and he's just getting the number, and then he reports, false start on 76 or whatever. So I think that's a fantastic idea, because it doesn't change any of the integrity that the referees have. They're actually able to communicate probably more effectively, definitely efficiently, by having that available to them.
Yeah, definitely. And, each time it may be seconds, but shaving off time here and there, making it a little bit more efficient, giving them a break from having to run around any more than they already have to, I think it's a good addition for sure.
I'm pretty sure that's an implementation for just the preseason as a test, like a lot of the things that we've been seeing, but I think that one should stick, and I think they should be able to pull the trigger on that even before the start of the regular season. Say, hey, this worked well, let's just do it, because in your demonstration, your discussion of saving time, with replay being even a bigger part of the game now and more things being reviewable, like the fumble, the Navarro-Bowman rule, then that makes sense, because if you're going to add possible additions of time in those respects, then you're going to be able to save them through that wireless communication. Let us know what you think. Twitter.com/FirstDownLine. You can also email us, FDL@FirstDownLine.com. This is the First Down Line podcast. He's Sean. I am Ryan. Brett Summers did not get to join us, even though he is now married and he's out of vacation time for the year on the First Down Line podcast. But apparently,
people are going to start to wonder that we might be the same person, seeing as how we're never appearing at the same time.
That's true. You guys have some sort of disguise that I didn't realize. You're actually the same rider. But I do know that you like to get out and go hiking, and I think maybe you will have some thoughts on these GoKin packs, which is something that Brett wrote about. There's a diagram with basically using the power of someone walking to create energy, and then these packs supply USB ports, mini USB, has a lithium-ion battery in it. I think it's a pretty cool addition to the world of like solar power, but this gives you something that even if you're not getting the best sun, you're still able to generate power with.
Yeah, I think this is fascinating. And then they include schematics, and anytime you include schematics, it's got to be good. But in terms of, you're out camping and you're out hiking, climbing, doing active stuff, charging your phone all day, and then you're good to go. No more worrying about car chargers or solar powered chargers. You kind of got it built into your normal activities already. I think that's a great idea.
Well, and he wrote even talking about college students being able to utilize this technology. So while this is sports and technology, if you're an outdoor enthusiast, this is something that's practical as college students, because my college life was bouncing back and forth from work. I might go to work at 8 in the morning, then come to campus at 1 and go back to work at 4 until evening. And this allows you to be able to get power for, say, your cell phone or some of the other things that you use. 5-minute walk. It says that GoKin packs claim that with a 5-minute walk, you can do a 10 to 25-minute phone call, and still phone calls are one of the most taxing things that you can do with the cell phone as far as battery life.
Yeah, definitely. And I think your point for college students is spot on, because the more we're using our phones or tablets for note-taking or recording in classes and stuff, I think that's a perfect application too.
You can read more about that at FirstDownLine.com and see all of our articles there. Brett A. Summers will continue to write, and hopefully we'll have him on the podcast 2 weeks from now for episode 9. The last article I wrote prior to the one about the Surface being partnered with the NFL was the International Olympic Committee offering classes to amateur athletes so that they can learn more about technology in sports. This is a perfect topic for what we do with First Down Line, because we're discussing sports and technology. And it was interesting because the video share that I posted, I think the day after I wrote the article about the classes that the IOC is offering, was about the technology in cycling in the Tour de France, and how pretty much every single bike frame in the Tour de France, even the wheels, are carbon fiber. And while that's made huge advancements in the lightness of the frames, it's also posed the risk to the athletes because they do not bend, they just shatter. And so pretty much anyone getting in a crash in the Tour de France is subject to maybe being a little less gracefully let to the ground if something happens to their bike. But in addition to cycling, they're talking about different evolutions in sports that maybe you would think about. We've talked a lot about soccer on this podcast. We've talked about the swimming technology and the suits that make athletes faster in the pool, but it even references Taekwondo and some of the technological advancements that are there. And these are Olympic sports. And so the IOC makes these classes available to the athletes no charge. And so this is a way where if you look at the amateuristic nature of athletes in the Olympics, they're having to work to support their hobby, which is ultimately to represent our country in the Olympic Games. This is another way for maybe them to get valuable education, so that then after their Olympic run or during the Olympic run, they might be able to do something that will sustain them post-Olympic competition.
Yeah, definitely. And something like this, it's just breaking down some of those barriers. There's already so much in front of an amateur athlete that wants to get into it enough that they can really represent on a world scale. Breaking down some of those barriers as far as information, that's huge. And I think that's a really good drive from the top, rather than you seeing some of these startups trying to bring information to athletes. This is really coming from top down, and that's cool.
Yeah, it's called the Massive Open Online Course, and it's just one of the topics that they do through the MOOC, through the International Olympic Committee. And the article, if you go to FirstDownLine.com, you can check out more about the bike frames. I mean, these frames are weighing as little as 24 ounces. Could you imagine a 2-pound bike frame, and you're going how fast down hills in a bunch of, it's a crowded circumstance. I mean, you watch the Tour de France on NBC Sports Network, and they're just jam-packed, and they're like sardines.
Well, it's just crazy that they're able to get everything so light that they're having to add things to it just to get back to the weight minimum. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that they have to do that, but I'm sure there's a long-term benefit for it. And I'd love to have my buddy Carl, who's a full-on cyclist. I mean, he's got the jerseys, attended some of the bigger events domestically, one in Colorado, a pro cycling event. I'd just like to get his take on this. Maybe we'll add that to our podcast 2 weeks from now because he lives in the same place as Brett, so maybe he can hop on and join us. What are your thoughts? First Down Line on Twitter at twitter.com/firstdownline, and also email fdl@firstdownline.com. He's Sean, I'm Ryan. This is our bi-weekly podcast. We'll be with you 2 weeks from today at 4:30 Pacific time, 7:30 Eastern. And we'd love this to be an interactive deal long term. They'll probably change once I'm outside of the backyard and maybe have like the studio with the better internet connection. But that said, we're making do, getting this thing started up, and we'd love to make it valuable for you. So if you have any feedback, you can also let us know on social media. I want to get into these hydrating water bottles, Sean, but first, give me an indication. Are you going to have any downloads or gadgets you're going to want to talk about before the end of the podcast?
You know, I don't have anything that comes to mind that I've been able to come up with.
Okay, that's fine, because I know we were going to game plan for that, and if we had something, we'd definitely share it. But the one I want to talk about before the hydrating water bottles, because to be honest, I was regretful I didn't find the fact that Gatorade was doing this 2-year experiment with the Brazilian soccer team before the World Cup. It would have been more timely about a month ago. But I'll get into it because it's kind of cool how they were making unique formulas of Gatorade based on the hydration requirements or optimal hydration of these athletes. And I'm sure you, as a sports medicine kind of guy, will get into it. But I got to talk about the video share I posted with Nerf basketball, and we did this a couple weeks back. Did you have a Nerf hoop back in the?
Oh, definitely. And, you know, who didn't? But we had this little room kind of outside the house, but not quite to the garage. It was kind of like our laundry utility space. And I had a Nerf hoop out there, and I spent many years during my middle school, elementary school days out there playing.
Well, and I'm still a big guy, and I'll admit I was a big kid. And in high school, I was not the best athlete when it came to the actual sport of basketball. I held my own. But when it was indoor basketball time, I was a beast. I was like Shaquille O'Neal, my man. And my dad, he screwed in on a piece of like a fiberglass square. He attached the basketball. Up and he put it up. We had vaulted ceilings in our house. Yeah, like probably a 6-foot basketball hoop, maybe a little bit. Now it's probably like 7 feet because we'd have to jump in the house. And it was awesome. So I was able to back my better in real life basketball friends all the way down like Shaquille O'Neal, and then just do this little 180 one-handed slam, which is pretty cool. Well, now if I had this app and this technology, Nerf would have allowed me to set up my iPad from a distance and be able to record automatically highlights from when I was being Shaquille O'Neal over my friends. Where was this stuff when we were kids?
I know. If only we could go back and do it all again.
I know. I wish this was here. And it had like an automatic scoring thing or something like that. If this is the rim, they had like a little underneath lever that when you would score, it push that down, and I think it kept score for you too. But it automatically would post updates from people who made these awesome highlights onto their YouTube pages. I mean, all the integration of the stuff was pretty cool. So I just want to go on record to say I'm jealous. Nerf, if you're hearing this, I would love to give myself a second chance at getting those highlights on the web. So send me one of these hoops, and then I'll put it up in the house, and I'll back people down. Like, Sean, you can come over, and you'll be at my mercy, okay?
We just, I feel like we're just one step away from starting our own amateur club indoor basketball team, and I think we need to get on this.
Yeah, we got to make it happen. You can read that article and see the video. It's from Nerf, and it's posted as a video share at FirstDownline.com. So I hope you at least got a chance to glance at this one I wrote a couple weeks back. This was about a microchip that has Wi-Fi connectivity and it's built into the top of a Gatorade water bottle. So if this is the spout, right about an inch or a half inch below, there's this microchip that detects how much fluid is coming out of this water bottle. And this is in combination with a pod that has a specialized formula of Gatorade that the athlete from the Brazilian national soccer team would place in the base of his bottle, his Gatorade bottle, and then when you filled it with water, you'd shake it, and that would make the Gatorade mixture so that the athlete could then drink it, but the bottle would be reset, and you would know how much liquid or this formula that the athlete was drinking, and that sent data to a coach and presumably the training staff on how much liquid the players were drinking. What a fascinating study. It's a shame that the Brazilian team did so poorly in the semifinal and third place game rounds of the World Cup, because otherwise there'd probably be a whole lot more payoff for Gatorade. But that said, the Brazilian team did not get eliminated early, which would have been even more disastrous from a marketing standpoint. But I got to get your medical take on the thought of, like, is this something that's truly valuable, or is this just really a marketing ploy that sounds and looks cool?
No, there's definitely some value to it, and it kind of all goes back to the needs of your body at the time determine what's going to be most useful for you to drink. So a lot of people have started to understand that if I'm just sitting around watching TV, drinking Gatorade doesn't do me a lot of good. It's just a lot of sugars. But if I'm out exercising, it might be better than just plain water. And you've seen in the recent years Gatorade trying to tweak this idea, and they have different drinks and products for different stages in your workout. So what you may drink to prep for a heavy workout and during the workout and after the workout should be different. And they've started to release different, like stage 1 drinks, stage 2 drinks, stuff like that. So this has taken that to a whole nother level, because now you're being able to tweak it based on the individual rather than just trends of this is best when you're prepping and this is best when you're in the middle of it and it's hot outside. Now it's really, well, this guy's really dehydrated. He might need a little bit more of carbohydrates to help with absorption versus this guy. So I think there's value to it. It might be a little overcomplicated for general distribution to teams, but for those elite teams, elite programs, there's definitely value there.
That's it for the FirstDownline.com podcast. Check out more at our webpage at FirstDownline.com.